Eusociality. Eusociality, Greek eueu, good, and social, is the highest level of organization of sociality. It is defined by the following characteristics: cooperative brood care, including care of offspring from other individuals, overlapping generations within a colony of adults, and a division of labor into reproductive and non-reproductive groups. The division of labor creates specialized behavioral groups within an animal society, sometimes called castes. Eusociality is distinguished from all other social systems because individuals of at least one caste usually lose the ability to perform behaviors characteristic of individuals in another caste. Eusocial colonies can be viewed as superorganisms. Cooperative brood rearing, seen here in honeybees, is a condition of eusociality. Eusociality has evolved among the insects, crustaceans, trematoda and mammals. It is most widespread in the Hymenoptera, ants, bees, and wasps, and in Blatodia, termites. A colony has caste differences. Queens and reproductive males take the roles of the sole reproducers, while soldiers and workers work together to create and maintain a living situation favorable for the brood. Queens produce multiple queen pheromones to create and maintain the eusocial state in their colonies. They may also eat eggs laid by other females or exert dominance by fighting. There are two eusocial rodents, the naked mole rat and the Damaraland mole rat. Some shrimps, such as Synalpheus regalis, are eusocial. E.O. Wilson and others have claimed that humans have evolved a weak form of eusociality. It has been suggested that the colonial and epiphytic staghorn fern, too, may make use of a primitively eusocial division of labor. History. Suzanne Batra introduced the term, eusocial, 1, after studying nesting in halictid bees including Halictus latisignatus, 2, pictured. The term, eusocial, was introduced in 1966 by Suzanne Batra, who used it to describe nesting behavior in halictid bees, on a scale of subsocial, solitary, colonial, communal, semisocial, and eusocial, where a colony is started by a single individual. 1-2 Batra observed the cooperative behavior of the bees, males and females alike, as they took responsibility for at least one duty, i.e., burrowing, cell construction, oviposition, within the colony. The cooperativeness was essential as the activity of one labor division greatly influenced the activity of another. Eusocial colonies can be viewed as superorganisms, with individual castes being analogous to different tissue or cell types in a multicellular organism. Castes fulfill a specific role that contributes to the functioning and survival of the whole colony, while being incapable of independent survival outside the colony. 3. In 1969, Charles D. Michener further expanded Batra's classification with his comparative study of social behavior in bees. He observed multiple species of bees, Apoidea, in order to investigate the different levels of animal sociality, all of which are different stages that a colony may pass through. Eusociality, which is the highest level of animal sociality a species can attain, specifically had three characteristics that distinguished it from the other levels. 1. Egg layers and worker-like individuals among adult females, division of labor. 2. The overlap of generations, mother and adult offspring. 3. Cooperative work on the cells of the bee's honeycomb. Weaver ants, here, collaborating to pull nest leaves together, can be considered eusocial, as they have a permanent division of labor. E.O. Wilson extended the terminology to include other social insects, such as ants, wasps, and termites. Originally, it was defined to include organisms, only invertebrates, that had the following three features: 1, 5, 6, 7. 1. Reproductive division of labor, with or without sterile castes. 2. Overlapping generations. 3. Cooperative care of young. Eusociality was then discovered in a group of chordates, the mole rats. Further research distinguished another possibly important criterion for eusociality, the point of no return. This is characterized by having individuals fixed into one behavioral group, usually before reproductive maturity. This prevents them from transitioning between behavioral groups, and creates a society with individuals truly dependent on each other for survival and reproductive success. For many insects, this irreversibility has changed the anatomy of the worker caste, which is sterile and provides support for the reproductive caste. 7. Diversity. Most eusocial societies exist in arthropods, while a few are found in mammals. Some ferns may exhibit a primitive form of eusocial behavior. 9. In insects. Eusociality has evolved multiple times in different insect orders, including hymenopterans, 10 termites, 11 thrips, 12 aphids, 12 and beetles. 13. In Hymenoptera. Swarming Iridomyrmex purpureus ants. The young queens are black, winged, and much larger than the wingless workers. The order Hymenoptera contains the largest group of eusocial insects, including ants, bees, and wasps, divided into castes: reproductive queens, drones, more or less sterile workers, and sometimes also soldiers that perform specialized tasks. 14. In the well-studied social wasp Polistes versicolor, 15. Dominant females perform tasks such as building new cells and ovipositing, while subordinate females tend to perform tasks like feeding the larva and foraging. The task differentiation between castes can be seen in the fact that subordinates complete 81.4% of the total foraging activity, while dominants only complete 18.6% of the total foraging. 16. Eusocial species with a sterile caste are sometimes called hypersocial. 17. While only a moderate percentage of species in bees, families Apidae and Halictidae, and wasps Crabronidae and Vespidae, are eusocial, nearly all species of ants Formicidae are eusocial. 18. Some major lineages of wasps are mostly or entirely eusocial, including the subfamilies Polistinae and Vespinae. The corbiculate bees, subfamily Apinae of family Apidae, contain 4 tribes of varying degrees of sociality. The highly eusocial Apini, honeybees, and Meliponini, stingless bees, primitively eusocial Bombini, bumblebees, and the mostly solitary or weakly social Euglossini, orchid bees. 19. Eusociality in these families is sometimes managed by a set of pheromones that alter the behavior of specific castes in the colony. These pheromones may act across different species, as observed in Apis andreniformis, black dwarf honeybee, where worker bees responded to queen pheromone from the related Apis florea, red dwarf honeybee. 20. Pheromones are sometimes used in these castes to assist with foraging. Workers of the Australian stingless bee Tetragonula carbonaria, for instance, mark food sources with a pheromone, helping their nest mates to find the food. 21. Myrmecocystus honeypot ants, showing the repletes or plurigates, their abdomens swollen to store honey topped with ordinary workers' bottom. Reproductive specialization generally involves the production of sterile members of the species, which carry out specialized tasks to care for the reproductive members. Individuals may have behavior and morphology modified for group defense, including self-sacrificing behavior. For example, members of the sterile caste of the honeypot ants such as Myrmecocystus fill their abdomens with liquid food until they become immobile and hang from the ceilings of the underground nests, acting as food storage for the rest of the colony. 22. Not all social insects have distinct morphological differences between castes. For example, in the neotropical social wasp Sinoeca serenema, caste ranks are determined by social displays in the developing brood. 23. These castes are sometimes further specialized in their behavior based on age, as in Scaptotrigona postica workers. Between approximately 0 to 40 days old, the workers perform tasks within the nest such as provisioning cell broods, colony cleaning, and nectar reception and dehydration. Once older than 40 days, S. postica workers move outside the nest for colony defense and foraging. 24. In Lasioglossum aniventer, a halictid bee from Central America, nests may be headed by more than one female. Such nests have more cells, and the number of active cells per female is correlated with the number of females in the nest, implying that having more females leads to more efficient building and provisioning of cells. 25. In similar species with only one queen, such as Lasioglossum mollichurum in Europe, the degree of eusociality depends on the clime in which the species is found. 26. In termites. Termites live in large nests, with queen, king, soldier, redheads, and worker paleheads castes. Termites, order Blatodia, infraorder Isoptera, make up another large portion of highly advanced eusocial animals. The colony is differentiated into various castes. The queen and king are the sole reproducing individuals. Workers forage and maintain food and resources. 27. And soldiers defend the colony against ant attacks. The latter 2 castes, which are sterile and perform highly specialized, complex social behaviors, are derived from different stages of pluripotent larvae produced by the reproductive caste. 11. Some soldiers have jaws so enlarged, specialized for defense and attack, that they are unable to feed themselves and must be fed by workers. 28. In beetles. Austroplatypus incompertus is a species of ambrosia beetle native to Australia, and is the first beetle order Coleoptera to be recognized as eusocial. 29. 13. This species forms colonies in which a single female is fertilized, and is protected by many unfertilized females, which serve as workers excavating tunnels in trees. This species has cooperative brood care, in which individuals care for juveniles that are not their own. 13. In gall-inducing insects. In gall-inducing insects. Cladothrips rugosa, a gall-forming thrips larva on left, adult on right with galls, center, on acacia leaves. Its soldier caste defends the colony in its gall fortress. Some gall-inducing insects, including the gall-forming aphid, Pemphigus spirothecae, order Hemiptera, and thrips such as Cladothrips, order Thysanoptera, are described as eusocial. 1230. These species have very high relatedness among individuals due to their asexual reproduction, sterile soldier castes being clones produced by parthenogenesis, but the gall-inhabiting behavior gives these species a defensible resource. They produce soldier castes for fortress defense and protection of the colony against predators, kleptoparasites, and competitors. In these groups, eusociality is produced by both high relatedness and by living in a restricted, shared area. 31. 32. In crustaceans. Eusociality has evolved in 3 different lineages in the colonial crustacean genus Synalphaeus. S. regalis, S. microneptunus, S. philodigitus, S. elizabethae, S. chaucer, S. riosi, S. duffy, and S. caeneptunus are the 8 recorded species of parasitic shrimp that rely on fortress defense and live in groups of closely related individuals in tropical reefs and sponges. 33. They live eusocially with a single breeding female, and a large number of male defenders armed with enlarged snapping claws. There is a single shared living space for the colony members, and the non-breeding members act to defend it. 34. The fortress defense hypothesis additionally points out that because sponges provide both food and shelter, there is an aggregation of relatives because the shrimp do not have to disperse to find food, and much competition for those nesting sites. Being the target of attack promotes a good defense system. Soldier caste. Soldiers promote the fitness of the whole nest by ensuring safety and reproduction of the queen. 35. Eusociality offers a competitive advantage in shrimp populations. Eusocial species are more abundant, occupy more of the habitat, and use more of the available resources than non-eusocial species. 36, 37, 38. In trematodes. The trematodes are a class of parasitic flatworm, also known as flukes. One species, Haplorchus pumilio, has evolved eusociality involving a colony creating a class of sterile soldiers. 39. One fluke invades a host and establishes a colony of dozens to thousands of clones that work together to take it over. Since rival trematode species can invade and replace the colony, it is protected by a specialized caste of sterile soldier trematodes. 40. Soldiers are smaller, more mobile, and develop along a different pathway than sexually mature reproductives. One difference is that a soldier's mouthparts, pharynx, is 5 times as big as those of the reproductives. They make up nearly a quarter of the volume of the soldier. These soldiers do not have a germinal mass, never metamorphose to be reproductive, and are, therefore, obligately sterile. 40. Soldiers are readily distinguished from the immature and mature reproductive worms. Soldiers are more aggressive than reproductives, attacking heterospecific trematodes that infect their host in vitro. H. Pumilio soldiers do not attack conspecifics from other colonies. The soldiers are not evenly distributed throughout the host body. They are found in the highest numbers in the basal visceral mass, where competing trematodes tend to multiply during the early phase of infection. This strategic positioning allows them to effectively defend against invaders, similar to how soldier distribution patterns are seen in other animals with defensive castes. They appear to be an obligately sterile physical caste, akin to that of the most advanced social insects. 40. In non-human mammals. Model of naked mole rat burrow with soldiers, workers, and queen, a social structure similar to the castes of the eusocial insects. Among mammals, 2 species in the rodent group Theomorpha are eusocial, the naked mole rat Heterocephalus glaber, and the Damaraland mole rat Fucames damarensis, both of which are highly inbred. 41. Usually living in harsh or limiting environments, these mole rats aid in raising siblings and relatives born to a single reproductive queen. However, this classification is controversial owing to disputed definitions of eusociality. To avoid inbreeding, mole rats sometimes outbreed and establish new colonies when resources are sufficient. 42. Most of the individuals cooperatively care for the brood of a single reproductive female, the queen to which they are most likely related. Thus, it is uncertain whether mole rats are truly eusocial, since their social behavior depends largely on their resources and environment. 43. Some mammals in the carnivora and primates have eusocial tendencies, especially meerkats, Suricata suricata, and dwarf mongooses, Heligale parvula. These show cooperative breeding and marked reproductive skews. In the dwarf mongoose, the breeding pair receives food priority and protection from subordinates and rarely has to defend against predators. 44. In humans. Scientists have debated whether humans are prosocial or eusocial. 45. Edward O. Wilson called humans eusocial apes, arguing for similarities to ants, and observing that early hominins cooperated to rear their children while other members of the same group hunted and foraged. 46. Wilson and others argued that through cooperation and teamwork, ants and humans form superorganisms. 47, 48, 49. Wilson's claims were vigorously rejected by critics of group selection theory, which grounded Wilson's argument. 46, 50, 51, and because human reproductive labor is not divided between castes. 50. Though controversial, 52, it has been suggested that male homosexuality, 53, and female menopause, 54, could have evolved through kin selection. 55, 56. This would mean that humans sometimes exhibit a type of alloparental behavior known as helpers at the nest, with juveniles and sexually mature adolescents helping their parents raise subsequent broods, as in some birds. 57, some non-eusocial bees, and meerkats. 58. These species are not eusocial, they do not have castes, and helpers reproduce on their own if given the opportunity. 59, 48, 60. In plants. The staghorn fern. Platycerium bifurcatum may display a simple form of eusociality. One plant, the epiphytic staghorn fern, Platycerium bifurcatum polypodiaceae, may exhibit a primitive form of eusocial behavior amongst clones. The evidence for this is that individuals live in colonies, where they are structured in different ways, with fronds of differing size and shape, to collect and store water and nutrients for the colony to use. At the top of a colony, there are both pleated fan-shaped nest, fronds that collect and hold water, and gutter-shaped strap, fronds that channel water. No solitary Platycerium species has both types. At the bottom of a colony, there are nest, fronds that clasp the trunk of the tree supporting the fern, and drooping photosynthetic fronds. These are argued to be adapted to support the colony structurally, i.e. that the individuals in the colony are to some degree specialized for tasks, a division of labor. 8, 9, 61. Evolution. Phylogenetic distribution. Eusociality is a rare but widespread phenomenon in species in at least 7 orders in the animal kingdom, as shown in the phylogenetic tree, non-eusocial groups not shown. All species of termites are eusocial, and it is believed that they were the first eusocial animals to evolve, sometime in the Upper Jurassic period, approximately 150 million years ago. 62. The other orders shown contain both eusocial and non-eusocial species, including many lineages where eusociality is inferred to be the ancestral state. Thus the number of independent evolutions of eusociality, clades, is not known. The major eusocial groups are shown in boldface in the phylogenetic tree. Paradox. Prior to the gene-centered view of evolution, eusociality was seen as paradoxical. If adaptive evolution unfolds by differential reproduction of individual organisms, the evolution of individuals incapable of passing on their genes presents a challenge. In On the Origin of Species, Darwin referred to the existence of sterile castes as the one special difficulty, which at first appeared to me insuperable, and actually fatal to my theory. 63. Darwin anticipated that a possible resolution to the paradox might lie in the close family relationship, which W. D. Hamilton quantified a century later with his 1964 inclusive fitness theory. After the gene-centered view of evolution was developed in the mid-1970s, non-reproductive individuals were seen as an extended phenotype of the genes, which are the primary beneficiaries of natural selection. 64. Inclusive fitness and haplodiploidy. Argument that haplodiploidy favors eusociality. Honeybees are haplodiploid, with haploid males and diploid females. It has been suggested that this organization favors eusociality, but haplodiploidy is neither necessary nor sufficient for eusociality to emerge. According to inclusive fitness theory, organisms can gain fitness by increasing the reproductive output of other individuals that share their genes, especially their close relatives. Natural selection favors individuals to help their relatives when the cost of helping is less than the benefit gained by their relative multiplied by the fraction of genes that they share, i.e. when cost less than relatedness * benefit. W. D. Hamilton suggested in 1964 that eusociality could evolve more easily among haplodiploid species such as Hymenoptera, because of their unusual relatedness structure. 65, 66, 67. In haplodiploid species, females develop from fertilized eggs and males develop from unfertilized eggs. Because a male is haploid, his daughters share 100% of his genes and 50% of their mother's. Therefore, they share 75% of their genes with each other. This mechanism of sex determination gives rise to what W. D. Hamilton first termed super sisters, more closely related to their sisters than they would be to their own offspring. 67. Even though workers often do not reproduce, they can pass on more of their genes by helping to raise their sisters than by having their own offspring, each of which would only have 50% of their genes. This unusual situation, where females may have greater fitness when they help rear sisters rather than producing offspring, is often invoked to explain multiple independent evolutions of eusociality, at least 9 separate times within the Hymenoptera. 68. Argument that haplodiploidy does not favor eusociality. Against the supposed benefits of haplodiploidy for eusociality, Robert Trivers notes that while females share 75% of genes with their sisters in haplodiploid populations, they only share 25% of their genes with their brothers. 69. Accordingly, the average relatedness of an individual to their sibling is 50%. Therefore, helping behavior is only advantageous if it is biased to helping sisters, which would drive the population to a 1:3 sex ratio of males to females. At this ratio, males, as the rarer sex, increase in reproductive value, reducing the benefit of female-biased investment. 70. Further, not all eusocial species are haplodiploid. Termites, some snapping shrimps, and mole rats are not. Conversely, many non-eusocial bees are haplodiploid, and among eusocial species many queens mate with multiple males, resulting in a hive of half-sisters that share only 25% of their genes. The association between haplodiploidy and eusociality is below statistical significance. 71. Haplodiploidy is thus neither necessary nor sufficient for eusociality to emerge. 72. Relatedness does still play a part, as monogamy, queens mating singly, is the ancestral state for all eusocial species so far investigated. 73. If kin selection is an important force driving the evolution of eusociality, monogamy should be the ancestral state, because it maximizes the relatedness of colony members. 73. Evolutionary ecology. Increased parasitism and predation rates are the primary ecological drivers of social organization. Group living affords colony members defense against enemies, specifically predators, parasites, and competitors, and allows them to gain advantage from superior foraging methods. 7. The importance of ecology in the evolution of eusociality is supported by evidence such as experimentally induced reproductive division of labor, for example when normally solitary queens are forced together. 74. Conversely, female Damaraland mole rats undergo hormonal changes that promote dispersal after periods of high rainfall. 75. Climate too appears to be a selective agent driving social complexity. Across bee lineages and Hymenoptera in general, higher forms of sociality are more likely to occur in tropical than temperate environments. 76. Similarly, social transitions within halictid bees, where eusociality has been gained and lost multiple times, are correlated with periods of climatic warming. Social behavior in facultative social bees is often reliably predicted by ecological conditions, and switches in behavioral type have been experimentally induced by translocating offspring of solitary or social populations to warm and cool climates. In H. rubicundus, females produce a single brood in cooler regions and 2 or more broods in warmer regions, so the former populations are solitary while the latter are social. 77. In another species of sweat bees, L. calcetum, social phenotype has been predicted by altitude and microhabitat composition, with social nests found in warmer, sunnier sites, and solitary nests found in adjacent, cooler, shaded locations. Facultatively social bee species, however, which comprise the majority of social bee diversity, have their lowest diversity in the tropics, being largely limited to temperate regions. 78. Multi-level selection. Once pre-adaptations such as group formation, nest building, high cost of dispersal, and morphological variation are present, between group competition has been suggested as a driver of the transition to advanced eusociality. M. A. Novak, C. E. Tarnita, and E. O. Wilson proposed in 2010 that since eusociality produces an extremely altruistic society, eusocial groups should out-reproduce their recuperative competitors, eventually eliminating all non-eusocial groups from a species. 79. Multilevel selection has been heavily criticized for its conflict with the kin selection theory. 80. Reversal to solitarity. A reversal to solitarity is an evolutionary 80. Reversal to solidarity. Multi-level selection. Once pre-adaptations such as group formation, nest building, high cost of dispersal, and morphological variation are present, between group competition has been suggested as a driver of the transition to advanced eusociality. M. A. Novak, C. E. Tarnita, and E. O. Wilson proposed in 2010 that since eusociality produces an extremely altruistic society, eusocial groups should out-reproduce their recuperative competitors, eventually eliminating all non-eusocial groups from a species. 79. Multilevel selection has been heavily criticized for its conflict with the kin selection theory. 80. Reversal to solitarity. A reversal to solitarity is an evolutionary phenomenon in which descendants of a eusocial group evolve solitary behavior once again. Bees have been model organisms for the study of reversal to solitarity, because of the diversity of their social systems. Each of the 4 origins of eusociality in bees was followed by at least one reversal to solitarity, giving a total of at least 9 reversals. 4-5. In a few species, solitary and eusocial colonies appear simultaneously in the same population, and different populations of the same species may be fully solitary or eusocial. 77. This suggests that eusociality is costly to maintain, and can only persist when ecological variables favor it. Disadvantages of eusociality include the cost of investing in non-reproductive offspring, and an increased risk of disease. 81. All reversals to solitarity have occurred among primitively eusocial groups, none have followed the emergence of advanced eusociality. The point of no return hypothesis posits that the morphological differentiation of reproductive and non-reproductive castes prevents highly eusocial species such as the honeybee from reverting to the solitary state. 20. Physiology and development. Pheromones. Pheromones play an important role in the physiological mechanisms of eusociality. Enzymes involved in the production and perception of pheromones were important for the emergence of eusociality within both termites and hymenopterans. 82. The best studied queen pheromone system in social insects is that of the honeybee Apis mellifera. Queen mandibular glands produce a mixture of 5 compounds, 3 aliphatic and 2 aromatic, which control workers. 83. Mandibular gland extracts inhibit workers from constructing queen cells, which can delay the hormonal-based behavioral development of workers and suppress their ovarian development. Pheromones play an important role in the physiological mechanisms of eusociality. Enzymes involved in the production and perception of pheromones were important for the emergence of eusociality within both termites and hymenopterans. Pheromones play an important role in the physiological mechanisms of eusociality. Enzymes involved in the production and perception of pheromones were important for the emergence of eusociality within both termites and hymenopterans. 82. The best studied queen pheromone system in social insects is that of the honeybee Apis mellifera. Queen mandibular glands produce a mixture of 5 compounds, 3 aliphatic and 2 aromatic, which control workers. 83. Mandibular gland extracts inhibit workers from constructing queen cells, which can delay the hormonal-based behavioral development of workers and suppress their ovarian development. 84. 83. Both behavioral effects mediated by the nervous system often leading to recognition of queens, releaser, and physiological effects on the reproductive and endocrine system, primer, are attributed to the same pheromones. These pheromones volatilize or are deactivated within 30 minutes, allowing workers to respond rapidly to the loss of their queen. 84. The levels of 2 of the aliphatic compounds increase rapidly in virgin queens within the first week after emergence from the pupa, consistent with their roles as sex attractants during the mating flight. 83. Once a queen is mated and begins laying eggs, she starts producing the full blend of compounds. 83. In several ant species, reproductive activity is associated with pheromone production by queens. 83. Mated egg-laying queens are attractive to workers, whereas young-winged virgin queens elicit little or no response. 83. Physiology of eusociality in fire ants. 3 queen pheromones help to create and maintain the eusocial state of the colony. Loss of a primer pheromone triggers the development of replacement queens. Loss of a primer pheromone triggers the development of replacement queens, dashed lines. 83. 84. Among ants, the queen pheromone system of the fire ant Solenopsis invicta includes both releaser and primer pheromones. A queen recognition releaser pheromone is stored in the poison sac along with 3 other compounds. These compounds elicit a behavioral response from workers. Several primer effects have also been demonstrated. Pheromones initiate reproductive development in new winged females, called female sexuals. 83. These chemicals inhibit workers from rearing male and female sexuals, suppress egg production in other queens of multiple queen colonies, and cause workers to execute excess queens. 83. 84. These pheromones maintain the eusocial phenotype, with one queen supported by sterile workers and sexually active males, drones. In queenless colonies, the lack of queen pheromones causes winged females to quickly shed their wings, develop ovaries and lay eggs. These virgin replacement queens assume the role of the queen and start to produce queen pheromones. 83. Similarly, queen weaver ants Oecophila longinoda have exocrine glands that produce pheromones which prevent workers from laying reproductive eggs. 84. Similar mechanisms exist in the eusocial wasp Vespula vulgaris. For a queen to dominate all the workers, usually numbering more than 3,000 in a colony, she signals her dominance with pheromones. The workers regularly lick the queen while feeding her, and the airborne pheromone from the queen's body alerts those workers of her dominance. 85. The mode of action of inhibitory pheromones which prevent the development of eggs in workers has been demonstrated in the bumblebee Bombus terrestris. 84. The pheromones suppress activity of the endocrine gland, the corpus allutum, stopping it from secreting juvenile hormone. 86. With low juvenile hormone, eggs do not mature. Similar inhibitory effects of lowering juvenile hormone were seen in halictin bees and Palestine wasps, but not in honeybees. 84. Other mechanisms. A variety of other mechanisms give queens of different species of social insects a measure of reproductive control over their nest mates. In many Palestes wasps, monogamy is established soon after colony formation by physical dominance interactions among foundresses of the colony, including biting, chasing, and food soliciting. Such interactions create a dominance hierarchy headed by larger, older individuals with the greatest ovarian development. The rank of subordinates is correlated with the degree of ovarian development. 84. Workers do not oviposit when queens are present, for a variety of reasons. Colonies tend to be small enough that queens can effectively dominate workers. Queens practice selective oophagy. The flow of nutrients favors queen over workers, and queens rapidly lay eggs in new or vacated cells. 84. In primitively eusocial bees, where castes are morphologically similar and colonies are small and short-lived, queens frequently nudge their nest mates and then burrow back down into the nest. This draws workers into the lower part of the nest where they may respond to stimuli for cell construction and maintenance. 84. Being nudged by the queen may help to inhibit ovarian development. In addition, the queen eats any eggs laid by workers. 84. Furthermore, temporally discrete production of workers and gines, actual or potential queens, can cause size dimorphisms between different castes, as size is strongly influenced by the season during which the individual is reared. In many wasps, worker caste is determined by a temporal pattern in which workers precede non-workers of the same generation. 87. In some cases, for example in bumblebees, queen control weakens late in the season, and the ovaries of workers develop. 84. The queen attempts to maintain her dominance by aggressive behavior and by eating worker-laid eggs. Her aggression is often directed towards the worker with the greatest ovarian development. 84. In highly eusocial wasps, where castes are morphologically dissimilar, both the quantity and quality of food are important for caste differentiation. 84. Recent studies in wasps suggest that differential larval nourishment may be the environmental trigger for larval divergence into workers or gines. 87. All honeybee larvae are initially fed with royal jelly, which is secreted by workers, but normally they are switched over to a diet of pollen and honey as they mature. If their diet is exclusively royal jelly, they grow larger than normal and differentiate into queens. This jelly contains a specific protein, royalactin, which increases body size, promotes ovary development, and shortens the developmental time period. 88. The differential expression in Palestes of larval genes and proteins, also differentially expressed during queen versus caste development in honeybees, indicates that regulatory mechanisms may operate very early in development. 87. Eusociality. Ant. Ants are eusocial insects of the family Formicidae and, along with the related wasps and bees, belong to the order Hymenoptera. Ants evolved from vespoid wasp ancestors in the Cretaceous period. More than 13,800 of an estimated total of 22,000 species have been classified. They are easily identified by their geniculate, elbowed, antennae and the distinctive node-like structure that forms their slender waists. Ants form colonies that range in size from a few dozen individuals often living in small natural cavities to highly organized colonies that may occupy large territories with sizable nests that consist of millions of individuals or into the hundreds of millions in supercolonies. Typical colonies consist of various castes of sterile, wingless females, most of which are workers or gates, as well as soldiers, dinergates, and other specialized groups. Nearly all ant colonies also have some fertile males called drones, and one or more fertile females called queens, gines. The colonies are described as superorganisms because the ants appear to operate as a unified entity, collectively working together to support the colony. Ants have colonized almost every landmass on Earth. The only places lacking indigenous ants are Antarctica and a few remote or inhospitable islands. Ants thrive in moist tropical ecosystems and may exceed the combined biomass of wild birds and mammals. Their success in so many environments has been attributed to their social organization and their ability to modify habitats, tap resources, and defend themselves. Their long coevolution with other species has led to mimetic, commensal, parasitic, and mutualistic relationships. Ant societies have division of labor, communication between individuals, and an ability to solve complex problems. These parallels with human societies have long been an inspiration and subject of study. Many human cultures make use of ants in cuisine, medication, and rites. Some species are valued in their role as biological pest control agents. Their ability to exploit resources may bring ants into conflict with humans, however, as they can damage crops and invade buildings. Some species, such as the red imported fire ant, Solenopsis invicta, of South America, are regarded as invasive species in other parts of the world, establishing themselves in areas where they have been introduced accidentally. Etymology. The word ant and the archaic word emmet, 3, are derived from anti, emmet of Middle English, which come from emmet of Old English. These are all related to Low Saxon mount, empen varieties Old Saxon emeta, and to German emis Old High German emesa. All of these words come from West Germanic *amachon, and the original meaning of the word was the biter, from Proto-Germanic off, away, plus mate, cut. 4, 5. The family name Formicidae is derived from the Latin formica, ant, 6, from which the words in other Romance languages, such as the Portuguese formiga, Italian formica, Spanish hormiga, Romanian furnica, and French formi are derived. It has been hypothesized that a Proto-Indo-European word *morwi was the root for Sanskrit vamra, Greek mermex, Old Church Slavonic moravagi, Old Irish marb, Old Norse mor, Dutch meyer, Swedish myra, Danish meyer, Middle Dutch mir, and Crimean Gothic mira. 7, 8. The family Formicidae belongs to the order Hymenoptera, which also includes sawflies, bees, and wasps. Ants evolved from a lineage within the stinging wasps, and a 2013 study suggests that they are a sister group of the Apoidea. 9. However, since Apoidea is a superfamily, ants must be upgraded to the same rank. 10. A more detailed basic taxonomy was proposed in 2020. 3 species of the extinct mid-Cretaceous genera Camelomecia and Camelospecia were placed outside of the Formicidae, in a separate clade within the general superfamily Formicoidea, which, together with Apoidea, forms the higher-ranking group Formicopoidina. 2. Fernandez et al. 2021 suggests that the common ancestors of ants and apoids within the Formicopoidina ants. Temporal range: Late Albian, present. Fire ants. Scientific classification domain: Eukaryota kingdom, Animalia phylum, Arthropoda class, Insecta order, Hymenoptera infraorder, Aculita. Superfamily: Formicoidea. Latreille, 1809-2. Family: Formicidae. Latreille, 1809. Taxonomy and evolution. Ants fossilized in Baltic amber. In 1966, E. O. Wilson and his colleagues identified the fossil remains of an ant, Spicamurma, that lived in the Cretaceous period. The specimen, trapped in amber dating back to around 92 million years ago, has features found in some wasps, but not found in modern ants. 15. The oldest fossils of ants date to the mid-Cretaceous, around 100 million years ago, which belong to extinct stem groups such as the Hydamyrmecinae, Spicamurminae and Zygarassamaceanae, with modern ant subfamilies appearing towards the end of the Cretaceous around 80 to 70 million years ago. 16. Ants diversified extensively during the Angiosperm terrestrial revolution. 17. And assumed ecological dominance around 60 million years ago. 18. 1. 19. 20. Some groups, such as the Leptonillinae and Martialinae, are suggested to have diversified from early primitive ants that were likely to have been predators underneath surface of the soil. 13. 21. During the Cretaceous period, a few species of primitive ants ranged widely on the Laurasian supercontinent, the northern hemisphere. Their representation in the fossil record is poor, in comparison to the populations of other insects, representing only about 1% of fossil evidence of insects in the era. Ants became dominant after adaptive radiation at the beginning of the Paleogene period. By the Oligocene and Miocene, ants had come to represent 20–40% of all insects found in major fossil deposits. Of the species that lived in the Eocene epoch, around 1 in 10 genera survive to the present. Genera surviving today comprise 56% of the genera in Baltic amber fossils, early Oligocene, and 92% of the genera in Dominican amber fossils, apparently early Miocene. 18. 22. Termites live in colonies and are sometimes called white ants, but termites are only distantly related to ants. They are the suborder Isoptera, and together with cockroaches, they form the order Blattodea. Blattodines are related to mantids, crickets, and other winged insects that do not undergo complete metamorphosis. Like ants, termites are eusocial, with sterile workers, but they differ greatly in the genetics of reproduction. The similarity of their social structure to that of ants is attributed to convergent evolution. 23. Velvet ants look like large ants, but are wingless female. Wasps. Region. Number of species 26. Neotropics 2000. Species 20. Number of. They are found on all continents except Antarctica, and only a few large islands, such as Greenland, Iceland, parts of Polynesia and the Hawaiian Islands lack native ant species. 27. 28. Ants occupy a wide range of ecological niches and exploit many different food resources as direct or indirect herbivores, predators and scavengers. Most ant species are omnivorous generalists, but a few are specialist feeders. There is considerable variation in ant abundance across habitats, peaking in the moist tropics to nearly 6 times that found in less suitable habitats. 29. Their ecological dominance has been examined primarily using estimates of their biomass. Myrmecologist E. O. Wilson had estimated in 2009 that at any one time the total number of ants was between 1 and 10 quadrillion, short scale i.e., between 1015 and 1016, and using this estimate he had suggested that the total biomass of all the ants in the world was approximately equal to the total biomass of the entire human race. 30. More careful estimates made in 2022 which take into account regional variations puts the global ant contribution at 12 megatons of dry carbon, which is about 20% of the total human contribution, but greater than the wild birds and mammals combined. This study also puts a conservative estimate of the ants at about 20 times 10 15 20 quadrillion. 31, 32, 33. Ants range in size from 0.75 to 52 millimeters, 0.0302.0 and 34, 35, the largest species being the fossil Titanomerma giganteum, the queen of which was 6 centimeters 21 halves in long with a wingspan of 15 centimeters, 6 in. 36. Ants vary in color. Most ants are yellow to red or brown to black, but a few species are green and some tropical species have a metallic luster. More than 13,800 species are currently known, 37, with upper estimates of the potential existence of about 22,000. See the article list of ant genera with the greatest diversity in the tropics. Taxonomic studies continue to resolve the classification and systematics of ants. Online databases of ant species, including Antweb, tweb.org/closing parenthesis and the Hymenoptera name server, help to keep track of the known and newly described species. 37. The relative ease with which ants may be sampled and studied in ecosystems has made them useful as indicator species in biodiversity studies. 38, 39. Distribution and diversity. Morphology. Diagram of a worker ant, Neoponera varinae. Ants are distinct in their morphology from other insects in having geniculate, elbowed, antennae, metapeloral glands, and a strong constriction of their second abdominal segment into a node-like petiole. The head, mesosoma, and metasoma are the three distinct body segments, formerly tagmata. The petiole forms a narrow waist between their mesosoma, thorax plus the first abdominal segment, which is fused to it, and gaster, abdomen less the abdominal segments in the petiole. The petiole may be formed by one or two nodes, the second alone, or the second and third abdominal segments. 40. Tergasternal fusion. When the tergite and sternite of a segment fuse together, can occur partly or fully on the second, third and fourth abdominal segment and is used in identification. Fourth abdominal tergasternal fusion was formerly used as character that defined the poneromorph subfamilies, Ponerinae and relatives within their clade, but this is no longer considered a synapomorphic character. 41. Like other arthropods, ants have an exoskeleton, an external covering that provides a protective casing around the body and a point of attachment for muscles, in contrast to the internal skeletons of humans and other vertebrates. Insects do not have lungs. Oxygen and other gases, such as carbon dioxide, pass through their exoskeleton via tiny valves called spiracles. Insects also lack closed blood vessels. Instead, they have a long, thin, perforated tube along the top of the body called the dorsal aorta, that functions like a heart, and pumps hemolymph toward the head, thus driving the circulation of the internal fluids. The nervous system consists of a ventral nerve cord that runs the length of the body, with several ganglia and branches along the way reaching into the extremities of the appendages. 42. Head. Bull ant showing the powerful mandibles and the relatively large compound eyes that provide excellent vision. An ant's head contains many sensory organs. Like most insects, ants have compound eyes made from numerous tiny lenses attached together. Ant eyes are good for acute movement detection, but do not offer a high-resolution image. They also have three small ocelli, simple eyes, on the top of the head that detect light levels and polarization. 43. Compared to vertebrates, ants tend to have blurrier eyesight, particularly in smaller species. 44. And a few subterranean taxa are completely blind. 12. However, some ants, such as Australia's bulldog ant, have excellent vision and are capable of discriminating the distance and size of objects moving nearly a meter away. 45. Based on experiments conducted to test their ability to differentiate between selected wavelengths of light, some ant species such as Camponotus blandus, Solenopsis invicta, and Formica cunicularia are thought to possess a degree of color vision. 46. Two antennae feelers are attached to the head. These organs detect chemicals, air currents, and vibrations. They also are used to transmit and receive signals through touch. The head has two strong jaws, the mandibles, used to carry food, manipulate objects, construct nests, and for defense. 42. In some species, a small pocket infrabuccal chamber inside the mouth stores food, so it may be passed to other ants or their larvae. 47. Mesosoma. Both the legs and wings of the ant are attached to the mesosoma thorax. The legs terminate in a hooked claw which allows them to hook on and climb surfaces. 48. Only reproductive ants, queens and males, have wings. Queens shed their wings after the nuptial flight, leaving visible stubs, a distinguishing feature of queens. In a few species, wingless queens, ergotoids, and males occur. 42. Metasoma. The metasoma, the abdomen, of the ant houses important internal organs, including those of the reproductive, respiratory, tracheae, and excretory systems. Workers of many species have their egg-laying structures modified into stings that are used for subduing prey and defending their nests. 42. Polymorphism. 7 leafcutter ant workers of various castes, left, and 2 queens, right. In the colonies of a few ant species, there are physical castes, workers in distinct size classes, called minor, microgates, median, and major ergates, macroergates. Often, the larger ants have disproportionately larger heads, and correspondingly stronger mandibles. Although formally known as dinergates, such individuals are sometimes called soldier ants because their stronger mandibles make them more effective in fighting, although they still are workers and their duties typically do not vary greatly from the minor or median workers. In the 7 leafcutter ant workers of various castes, left, and 2 queens, right. In the colonies of a few ant species, there are physical castes, workers in distinct size classes, called minor microgates median, and major orgates macroorgates. Often, the larger ants have disproportionately larger heads, and correspondingly stronger mandibles. Although formally known as dinergates, such individuals are sometimes called soldier ants because their stronger mandibles make them more effective in fighting, although they still are workers and their duties typically do not vary greatly from the minor or median workers. 49. In a few species, the median workers are absent, creating a sharp divide between the minors and majors. 50. Weaver ants, for example, have a distinct bimodal size distribution. 51. 52. Some other species show continuous variation in the size of workers. The smallest and largest workers in Cairbarra diversa show nearly a 500-fold difference in their dry weights. 53. Workers cannot mate, however, because of the haplodiploid sex determination system in ants. Workers of a number of species can lay unfertilized eggs that become fully fertile, haploid males. The role of workers may change with their agent in some species, such as honey. Workers cannot mate, however, because of the haplodiploid sex determination system in ants. Workers of a number of species can lay unfertilized eggs that become fully fertile, haploid males. The role of workers may change with their agent in some species, such as honeypot ants. Young workers are fed until their gasters are distended, and act as living food storage vessels. These food storage workers are called repletes. 54. For instance, these replete workers develop in the North American honeypot ant Myrmecocystus mexicanus. Usually the largest workers in the colony develop into repletes, and, if repletes are removed from the colony, other workers become repletes, demonstrating the flexibility of this particular polymorphism. 55. This polymorphism in morphology and behavior of workers initially was thought to be determined by environmental factors such as nutrition and hormones that led to different developmental paths. However, genetic differences between worker castes have been noted in Acromyrmex sp. 56. These polymorphisms are caused by relatively small genetic changes. Differences in a single gene of Solenopsis invicta can decide whether the colony will have single or multiple queens. 57. The Australian jack jumper ant, Myrmecia pilosella, has only a single pair of chromosomes, with the males having just one chromosome as they are haploid, the lowest number known for any animal, making it an interesting subject for studies in the genetics and developmental biology of social insects. 56. These polymorphisms are caused by relatively small genetic changes. Differences in a single gene of Solenopsis invicta can decide whether the colony will have single or multiple queens. 57. The Australian jack jumper ant, Myrmecia pilosella, has only a single pair of chromosomes, with the males having just one chromosome as they are haploid, the lowest number known for any animal, making it an interesting subject for studies in the genetics and developmental biology of social insects. 58. 59. Genome size. Genome size is a fundamental characteristic of an organism. Ants have been found to have tiny genomes, with the evolution of genome size suggested to occur through loss and accumulation of non-coding regions, mainly transposable elements, and occasionally by whole genome duplication. 60. This may be related to colonization processes, but further studies are needed to verify this. 60. Life cycle. Meat-eater ant nest during swarming. The life of an ant starts from an egg. If the egg is fertilized, the progeny will be female diploid. If not, it will be male haploid. Ants develop by complete metamorphosis, with the larva stages passing through a pupal stage before emerging as an adult. The larva is largely immobile and is fed and cared for by workers. Food is given to the larva by trophallaxis, a process in which an ant regurgitates liquid food held in its crop. This is also how adults share food. Ants develop. The life of an ant starts from an egg. If the egg is fertilized, the progeny will be female diploid. If not, it will be male haploid. Ants develop by complete metamorphosis, with the larva stages passing through a pupal stage before emerging as an adult. The larva is largely immobile and is fed and cared for by workers. Food is given to the larva by trophallaxis, a process in which an ant regurgitates liquid food held in its crop. This is also how adults share food, stored in the social stomach. Larvae, especially in the later stages, may also be provided solid food, such as trophic eggs, pieces of prey, and seeds brought by workers. 61. The larvae grow through a series of 4 or 5 molts and enter the pupal stage. The pupa has the appendages free and not fused to the body as in a butterfly pupa. 62. The differentiation into queens and workers, which are both female and different castes of workers, is influenced in some species by the nutrition the larvae obtain. Genetic influences and the control of gene expression by the developmental environment are complex, and the determination of 62. The differentiation into queens and workers, which are both female and different castes of workers, is influenced in some species by the nutrition the larvae obtain. Genetic influences and the control of gene expression by the developmental environment are complex, and the determination of caste continues to be a subject of research. 63. Winged male ants, called drones, termed anner, in old literature. 49. Emerge from pupae along with the usually winged breeding females. Some species, such as army ants, have wingless queens. Larvae and pupae need to be kept at fairly constant temperatures to ensure proper development, and so often are moved around among the various brood chambers within the colony. 64. A new ergate spends the first few days of its adult life caring for the queen and young. She then graduates to digging and other nest work, and later to defending the nest and foraging. These changes are sometimes fairly sudden, and define what are called temporal castes. Such age-based task specialization or polyethism has been suggested as having evolved due to the high casualties involved in foraging and defense, making it an acceptable risk only for ants who are older and likely to die sooner from natural causes. 65. 66. In the Brazilian, these changes are sometimes fairly sudden, and define what are called temporal castes. Such age-based task specialization or polytheism has been suggested as having evolved due to the high casualties involved in foraging and defense, making it an acceptable risk only for ants who are older and likely to die sooner from natural causes. 65-66. In the Brazilian ant Foralius pusillus, the nest entrance is closed from the outside to protect the colony from predatory ant species at sunset each day. About 1 to 8 workers seal the nest entrance from the outside and they have no chance of returning to the nest and are in effect sacrificed. 67. Whether these seemingly suicidal workers or older workers has not been determined. 68. Ant colonies can be long-lived. The queens can live for up to 30 years, and workers live from 1 to 3 years. Males, however, are more transitory, being quite short-lived and surviving for only a few weeks. 69. Ant queens are estimated to live 100 times as long as solitary insects of a similar size. 70. Ants are active all year long in the tropics. However, in cooler regions, they survive the winter in a state of dormancy known as hibernation. The forms of inactivity are varied and some temperate species have larvae going into the inactive state, diapause, while in others, the adults alone pass the winter in a state of reduced activity. 71. Reproduction. Honey ant Prenolepis imparis mating, the drone is much smaller than the queen. A wide range of reproductive strategies have been noted in ant species. Females of many species are known to be capable of reproducing asexually through Thelytokis parthenogenesis. 72. Secretions from the male accessory glands in some species can plug the female genital opening and prevent females from remating. 73. Most ant species have a system in which only the queen and breeding females have the ability to mate. Contrary to popular belief, some ant nests have multiple queens, while others may exist without queens. Workers with the ability to reproduce are called gamergates, and colonies that lack queens are then called gamergate colonies. Colonies with queens are said to be queen-right. 74. Drones can also mate with existing queens by entering a foreign colony, such as in army ants. When the drone is initially attacked by the workers, it releases a mating pheromone. If recognized as a mate, it will be carried to the queen to mate. 75. Males may also patrol the nest and fight others by grabbing them with their mandibles, piercing their exoskeleton and then marking them with a pheromone. The marked male is interpreted as an invader by worker ants and is killed. 76. Most ants are univoltine, producing a new generation each year. 77. During the species-specific breeding period, winged females and winged males, known to entomologists as alates, leave the colony in what is called a nuptial flight. The nuptial flight usually takes place in the late spring or early summer when the weather is hot and humid. Heat makes flying easier and freshly fallen rain makes the ground softer for mated queens to dig nests. 78. Males typically take flight before the females. Males then use visual cues to find a common mating ground, for example, a landmark such as a pine tree to which other males in the area converge. Males secrete a mating pheromone that females follow. Males will mount females in the air, but the actual mating process usually takes place on the ground. Females of some species mate with just one male, but in others they may mate with as many as 10 or more different males, storing the sperm in their spermathecae. 79. The genus Cardiocondyla have species with both winged and wingless males, where the latter will only mate with females living in the same nest. Some species in the genus have lost winged males completely, and only produce wingless males. 80. In C. elegans, workers may transport newly emerged queens to other conspecific nests where the wingless males from unrelated colonies can mate with them, a behavioral adaptation that may reduce the chances of inbreeding. 81. Fertilized meat-eater ant queen beginning to dig a new colony. Mated females then seek a suitable place to begin a colony. There, they break off their wings using their tibial spurs and begin to lay and care for eggs. The females can selectively fertilize future eggs with the sperm stored to produce diploid workers or lay unfertilized haploid eggs to produce drones. The first workers to hatch, known as nanitics, 82, are weaker and smaller than later workers, but they begin to serve the colony immediately. They enlarge the nest, forage for food, and care for the other eggs. Species that have multiple queens may have a queen leaving the nest along with some workers to found a colony at a new site. 79, a process akin to swarming in honeybees. Nests, colonies, and supercolonies. The typical ant species has a colony occupying a single nest, housing one or more queens, where the brood is raised. There are however more than 150 species of ants in 49 genera that are known to have colonies consisting of multiple spatially separated nests. These polydamas, as opposed to monodamas colonies, have food and workers moving between the nests. 83. Membership to a colony is identified by the response of worker ants, which identify whether another individual belongs to their own colony or not. A signature cocktail of body surface chemicals, also known as cuticular hydrocarbons or CHCs, forms the so-called colony odor which other members can recognize. 84. Some ant species appear to be less discriminating, and in the Argentine ant Lymphethema humile, workers carried from a colony anywhere in the southern U.S. and Mexico are acceptable within other colonies in the same region. Similarly, workers from colonies that have established in Europe are accepted by any other colonies within Europe but not by the colonies in the Americas. The interpretation of these observations has been debated, and some have been termed these large populations as supercolonies, 85, 86, 87, while others have termed the populations as unicolonial. 88. Behavior and ecology. Communication. 2. Camponotus cereus workers communicating through touch and pheromones. Ants find a dying white cabbage larva that parasitoid wasps' larva exited 2 days earlier. Ants communicate with each other using pheromones, sounds, and touch. 89. Since most ants live on the ground, they use the soil surface to leave pheromone trails that may be followed by other ants. In species that forage in groups, a forager that finds food marks a trail on the way back to the colony. This trail is followed by other ants. These ants then reinforce the trail when they head back with food to the colony. When the food source is exhausted, no new trails are marked by returning ants and the scent slowly dissipates. This behavior helps ants deal with changes in their environment. For 89, since most ants live on the ground, they use the soil surface to leave pheromone trails that may be followed by other ants. In species that forage in groups, a forager that finds food marks a trail on the way back to the colony. This trail is followed by other ants. These ants then reinforce the trail when they head back with food to the colony. When the food source is exhausted, no new trails are marked by returning ants and the scent slowly dissipates. This behavior helps ants deal with changes in their environment. For instance, when an established path to a food source is blocked by an obstacle, the foragers leave the path to explore new routes. If an ant is successful, it leaves a new trail marking the shortest route on its return. Successful trails are followed by more ants, reinforcing better routes and gradually identifying the best path. 89-90. Ants use pheromones for more than just making trails. A crushed ant emits an alarm pheromone that sends nearby ants into an attack frenzy and attracts more ants from farther away. Several ant species even use propaganda pheromones to confuse enemy ants and make them fight among themselves. 91. Pheromones are produced by a wide range of structures including Dufour's glands, poison glands and glands on the hindgut, pygidium, rectum, sternum, and hind tibia. 70. Pheromones also are exchanged, mixed with food, and passed by trophallaxis, transferring information within the colony. 92. This allows other ants to detect what task group, e.g., foraging or nest maintenance, other colony members belong to. 93. In ant species with queen castes, when the dominant queen stops producing a specific pheromone, workers begin to raise new queens in the colony. 94. Some ants produce sounds by stridulation, using the gaster segments and their mandibles. Sounds may be used to communicate with colony members or with other species. 95-96. Defense. A Plectroctina sp. attacks another of its kind to protect its territory. Ants attack and defend themselves by biting and, in many species, by stinging, often injecting or spraying chemicals. Bullet ants Paraponera, located in Central and South America, are considered to have the most painful sting of any insect, although it is usually not fatal to humans. This sting is given the highest rating on the Schmidt Sting Pain Index. 97. The sting of jackjumper ants can be lethal for humans. 98. And an antivenom has been developed for it. 99. Fire ants, Solenopsis spp, are unique in having a venom sac containing piperidine alkaloids. 100. Their stings are painful and can be dangerous to hypersensitive people. 101. Formicine ants secrete a poison from their glands, made mainly of formic acid. 102. A weaver ant in fighting position, mandibles wide open. Trapjaw ants of the genus Odontomachus are equipped with mandibles called trapjaws, which snap shut faster than any other predatory appendages within the animal kingdom. 103. One study of Odontomachus bauri recorded peak speeds of between 126 and 230 km per hour, 78 and 143 miles per hour, with the jaws closing within 130 microseconds on average. The ants were also observed to use their jaws as a catapult to eject intruders or fling themselves backward to escape a threat. 103. Before striking, the ant opens its mandibles extremely widely and locks them in this position by an internal mechanism. Energy is stored in a thick band of muscle and explosively released when triggered by the stimulation of sensory organs resembling hairs on the inside of the mandibles. The mandibles also permit slow and fine movements for other tasks. Trapjaws also are seen in other ponerines such as Anachetus, as well as some genera in the tribe Attini, such as Dayston, Oractignathus, and Strumigenes, 103-104, which are viewed as examples of convergent evolution. A Malaysian species of ant in the Camponotus cylindricus group has enlarged mandibular glands that extend into their gaster. If combat takes a turn for the worse, a worker may perform a final act of suicidal altruism by rupturing the membrane of its gaster, causing the content of its mandibular glands to burst from the anterior region of its head, spraying a poisonous, corrosive secretion containing acetophenones and other chemicals that immobilize small insect attackers. The worker subsequently dies. 105. Ant mound holes prevent water from entering the nest during rain. In addition to defense against predators, ants need to protect their colonies from pathogens. Secretions from the metapleural gland, unique to the ants, produce a complex range of chemicals including several with antibiotic properties. 106. Some worker ants maintain the hygiene of the colony and their activities include undertaking or necrophoresis, the disposal of dead nestmates. 107. Oleic acid has been identified as the compound released from dead ants that triggers necrophoric behavior in Atta mexicana. 108. While workers of Lymphethema humile react to the absence of characteristic chemicals, dolichodiol and iridomyrmecin, present on the cuticle of their living nestmates to trigger similar behavior. 109. In Megaponera annelise, injured ants are treated by nestmasts with secretions from their metapleural glands which protect them from infection. 110. Camponotus ants do not have a metapleural gland. 106. And Camponotus maculatus as well as C. Floridanus workers have been found to amputate the affected legs of nestmates when the femur is injured. A femur injury carries a greater risk of infection unlike a tibia injury. 111. Nests may be protected from physical threats such as flooding and overheating by elaborate nest architecture. 112-113. Workers of Catalicus muticus, an arboreal species that lives in plant hollows, respond to flooding by drinking water inside the nest, and excreting it outside. 114. Camponotus andersoni, which nests in the cavities of wood and mangrove habitats, deals with submergence underwater by switching to anaerobic respiration. 115. Learning. Two weaver ants walking in tandem. Many animals can learn behaviors by imitation, but ants may be the only group apart from mammals where interactive teaching has been observed. A knowledgeable forager of Temnothorax albipennis can lead a naive nestmate to newly discovered food by the process of tandem running. The follower obtains knowledge through its leading tutor. The leader is acutely sensitive to the progress of the follower and slows down when the follower lags and speeds up when the follower gets too close. 116. Controlled experiments with colonies of Sarapachis baroi suggest that an individual may choose nest roles based on her previous experience. An entire generation of identical workers was divided into two groups whose outcome in food foraging was controlled. One group was continually rewarded with prey, while it was made certain that the other failed. As a result, members of the successful group intensified their foraging attempts while the unsuccessful group ventured out fewer and fewer times. A month later, the successful foragers continued in their role while the others had moved to specialize in brood care. 117. Nest construction. Leaf nest of weaver ants, Pamelican, Philippines. Complex nests are built by many ant species, but other species are nomadic and do not build permanent structures. Ants may form subterranean nests or build them on trees. These nests may be found in the ground, under stones or logs, inside logs, hollow stems, or even acorns. The materials used for construction include soil and plant matter. 79. And ants carefully select their nest sites. Temnothorax albipennis will avoid sites with dead ants, as these may indicate the presence of pests or disease. They are quick to abandon established nests at the first sign of threats. 118. The army ants of South America, such as the Ecidon burchellii species, and the driver ants of Africa do not build permanent nests, but instead, alternate between nomadism and stages where the workers form a temporary nest bivouac from their own bodies, by holding each other together. 119. Weaver ant, Oecophila spp. Workers build nests in trees by attaching leaves together, first pulling them together with bridges of workers and then inducing their larvae to produce silk as they are moved along the leaf edges. Similar forms of nest construction are seen in some species of Polyrachis. 120. Ant bridge. Formica polyctina, among other ant species, constructs nests that maintain a relatively constant interior temperature that aids in the development of larvae. The ants maintain the nest temperature by choosing the location, nest materials, controlling ventilation and maintaining the heat from solar radiation, worker activity and metabolism, and in some moist nests, microbial activity in the nest materials. 121, 122. Some ant species, such as those that use natural cavities, can be opportunistic and make use of the controlled microclimate provided inside human dwellings and other artificial structures to house their colonies and nest structures. 123, 124. Cultivation of food. Myrmecocystis, honeypot ants, store food to prevent colony famine. Most ants are generalist predators, scavengers, and indirect herbivores. 19, but a few have evolved specialized ways of obtaining nutrition. It is believed that many ant species that engage in indirect herbivora rely on specialized symbiosis with their gut microbes. 125, to upgrade the nutritional value of the food they collect. 126, and allow them to survive in nitrogen-poor regions, such as rainforest canopies. 127, leafcutter ants, Atta and Acromyrmex, feed exclusively on a fungus that grows only within their colonies. They continually collect leaves which are taken to the colony, cut into tiny pieces and placed in fungal gardens. Ergates specialize in related tasks according to their sizes. The largest ants cut stalks, smaller workers chew the leaves and the smallest tend the fungus. Leafcutter ants are sensitive enough to recognize the reaction of the fungus to different plant material, apparently detecting chemical signals from the fungus. If a particular type of leaf is found to be toxic to the fungus, the colony will no longer collect it. The ants feed on structures produced by the fungi called Gongylidia. Symbiotic bacteria on the exterior surface of the ants produce antibiotics that kill bacteria introduced into the nest that may harm the fungi. 128. Navigation. An ant trail. Foraging ants travel distances of up to 200 meters, 700 feet, from their nest. 129, and scent trails allow them to find their way back even in the dark. In hot and arid regions, day foraging ants face death by desiccation, so the ability to find the shortest route back to the nest reduces that risk. Diurnal desert ants of the genus Cataglyphus such as the Sahara Desert ant navigate by keeping track of direction as well as distance traveled. Distances traveled are measured using an internal pedometer that keeps count of the steps taken, 130, and also by evaluating the movement of objects in their visual field, optical flow. 131, directions are measured using the position of the sun. 132, they integrate this information to find the shortest route back to their nest. 133, like all ants, they can also make use of visual landmarks when available. 134, as well as olfactory and tactile cues to navigate. 135, 136, some species of ant are able to use the Earth's magnetic field for navigation. 137, the compound eyes of ants have specialized cells that detect polarized light from the sun, which is used to determine direction. 138, 139, these polarization detectors are sensitive in the ultraviolet region of the light spectrum. 140, in some army ant species, a group of foragers who become separated from the main column may sometimes turn back on themselves and form a circular ant mill. The workers may then run around continuously until they die of exhaustion. 141. Locomotion. The female worker ants do not have wings, and reproductive females lose their wings after their mating flights in order to begin their colonies. Therefore, unlike their wasp ancestors, most ants travel by walking. Some species are capable of leaping. For example, Jordan's jumping ant, Harpegnathos saltator, is able to jump by synchronizing the action of its mid and hind pairs of legs. 142. There are several species of gliding ant including Cephalocetratus. This may be a common trait among arboreal ants with small colonies. Ants with this ability are able to control their horizontal movements so as to catch tree trunks when they fall from atop the forest canopy. 143. Other species of ants can form chains to bridge gaps over water, underground, or through spaces in vegetation. Some species also form floating rafts that help them survive floods. 144. These rafts may also have a role in allowing ants to colonize islands. 145. Polyrachis sokolova, a species of ant found in Australian mangrove swamps, can swim and live in underwater nests. Since they lack gills, they go to trapped pockets of air in the submerged nests to breathe. 146. Cooperation and competition. Meat-eater ants feeding on a cicada. Social ants cooperate and collectively gather food. Not all ants have the same kind of societies. The Australian bulldog ants are among the biggest and most basal.